So, last video, I did a full analysis of Peter Elgorriaga's statement. Um, his first one, which was a shorter one. I know too much of people's dismay. I did not do the second one yet. But I felt that I was really boring in that one. And so I do apologize. Um, my wife, she went through it and she had mentioned that as well. And I agree with her. So I do apologize for all of you who fell asleep watching my really boring analysis of Peter Elgorriaga. It was a very long video. There was lots of information. So for that reason and for other reasons, I feel that it would be very beneficial to do a nice summary of and to really clarify my conclusions here when it comes to Peter Elgorriaga. So let's jump into it. All right. So I don't want to zoom in too much. Does that look good? That looks good. Okay. So here is my post-analysis review, mostly just focusing on my conclusions and why I'm concluding what I'm concluding. So this will be a great video for you. We're just going to go through, I believe it's 9 points here. Okay. So based on my analysis of Peter, conclusion number 1 is Peter had a bad relationship with Ethan Chapin. Okay. Why? Well, he would not say my friend Ethan. He would not say Ethan was my friend. If he can't say it, I won't say it for him, and neither should you. Okay. He did not give a social introduction. 3 things. My friend Ethan. Okay. Did not say that the entire interview. All right. He would not talk about the quality of their relationship. Now, he did talk about the quantity, right? But there were problems with that. So he talked about how much they talked. He said he spoke to Ethan. And he would talk about proximity in my apartment. All right. But he would not talk. He would not speak to the quality of their relationship. So that's subpoint A there. So I'm going to give an example of the man is not married. So this is something that Peter Hyatt, who I learned statement analysis from, he would use this example. He analyzed a statement where, I'll make me full screen here, where he analyzed a man, and based on his analysis, he went through the whole thing. He concluded this man is not married. And I can't remember if it was a fellow analyst or a colleague, but they said, hey, this man was married. This is his wife, and here's her name. And he was married. And Peter says, according to this statement, which we have to understand, statement analysis seeks to understand the psychological reality of the subject, what the subject believes, how the subject views the external reality, their values, their perception of reality, the psychological reality. And he said, based on that, this individual is not married. Why? Because he would not speak about it. He did not indicate it. He didn't talk about it. And that's powerful. Okay. And so I know that this idea, and I kind of want to just do a little tangent here and talk about this concept is difficult for people to sink their teeth into, especially when in a case like this, where I'm jumping in 4 years later, and a lot of the people who watch my channel know 10 to 100 to 1,000 times more information about case facts about Idaho 4. And as you know, as y'all listen to my analysis, there's so many case facts floating around in the mind that it's so difficult to not interpret what he's saying as according to the case facts that are known in y'all's mind. And I've started to learn more and more about case facts, and I can say the same thing. I don't say this in judgment. There's no judgment. It's just statement analysis is a disciplined listening. Okay. If a subject perceives something that does not match reality, we do not force that reality into their mind and go, oh, well, I must just not be understanding what they are saying or meaning because I know this case fact. So there's no way that's what they meant. That's a perfect example. This is why I bring this up, because Peter Hyatt, as he analyzed this individual, if he had known, and he may have known that this individual is married, but he is disciplined and he said, no, according to the statement, according to the psychological reality of this person, he is not married. And that is super insightful, very insightful as to the relationship. Okay. And so I hope that makes sense. Let's go back to Ethan here. Okay. I'm sorry, Ethan. Peter. Ethan's on my mind. Okay. Subpoint B here. Peter may have seen Ethan as a rival. Okay. He refers to Ethan as the type of guy. He also talks about potential beef. Okay. And we're going to look at these actual statements here. So these 4 subpoints. Xana was likely a point of contention. Okay. Peter referred to Xana as Zan in this statement. Peter shared how long he had known Xana, not Ethan. Okay. Peter began to mention Xana first at one point, stopped, and then said Ethan and Xana. We're going to look at that as well. And so I'm just going to give this example as a kind of a precursor. This is also something Peter would say. He would say, if I asked one of my kids, who is all in your class? Tell me about all the kids in your class. And right away, what's extremely likely, the names that are extremely likely to spill out of the child's mouth first are guess. The kids who are closest to the son or daughter. They'll start with their friends. They'll start with those who are close to them. And then as they go on and on, further along that list, they're going to be mentioning names that they have less and less of a relationship. That's priority. Okay. So Peter mentioned Xana first at one point, stopped, and then said Ethan and Xana. We're going to look at that as well. And Peter disparaged Ethan's and Xana's relationship. Okay. So let's start with the first one. He would not say, well, I'd have to show you the whole statement for this one. He wouldn't say my friend Ethan. Ethan was my friend, right? He would not talk about the quality of the relationship, only the quantity. Okay, so, and the detective gave him this on a silver platter. The detective said, that's perfect. I'm described. So you were described to me as a very good friend of Ethan's. Is that correct? He just said, yeah. Detective said, okay. And then subject said, yeah, that's correct. And just parroted back that. That's it. And then the detective gave him another chance. I mean, this was a huge chance to talk about Ethan. Okay? To talk about very good friend of Ethan's. He did not take that opportunity. He just said, yeah. And he just said, yeah, that's correct. So the detective gave him another chance. Tell me about that. Right? Tell me about that. And he says, yeah, I spoke to Ethan every day, multiple times a day. We don't know for how long this was. He does not say. Okay. He says he was in my apartment I don't know, 4 days out of the week, just hanging out. Who's hanging out? He doesn't say. And then he talks about what doesn't make sense. Okay. And he wouldn't say what it was, right? He talked about how Ethan was not the type of guy. He talked about who Ethan wasn't, okay? And how he didn't have any sort of beef with anyone. All right, so he talked about beef in regards to Ethan. All right, he didn't talk about anything about this is how great Ethan was. These are the characteristics of Ethan that I loved. This is what we did together. This is what we cherished together. This is what Ethan meant to me. This is what Ethan did for me. There was nothing about that. Okay. So Ethan may have been seen as a rival because he's talking about he's not the type of guy. Okay. He talked about the type of guy he was, a type of guy. All right. Not a type of person. All right. He was the type of friend to me that would do X, Y, and Z. All right. He's the type of guy. Okay. Guy could be an indication of a rival, right? She has a lot of guys who talk to him. All right. So there's that. And then the beef, I covered that. Xana was likely a point of contention. So yeah, at one point he mentions Xan. And then let's see. Oh yeah. Here he talks about Ethan. And then here the detective asks about Xana. And he says, the subject says, no, that's a huge confusing part about it. They were both super happy. So he goes back to both of them. Okay. And they were both super happy people, didn't like any drama. Okay. And then says, and like, yeah, I had known Xana since my freshman year until now. All right. So there's also, and I should have said this. Oh, I guess I did talk about it here. And what's kind of embedded here, Peter disparages Ethan's and Xana's relationship. He also disparages Xana here. So there's nothing positive about Xana here. But what's interesting is this contrast. That's a huge confusing part. So he said all these things in the negative. Okay. What doesn't make sense? He's not the type of guy, and he didn't have any sort of beef. All right. And then when it comes to Xana, that's a huge confusing part. So to contrast this with Ethan, this was even more of a less understanding part of this is how Xana, right, would have had any problems with anyone. So, and that's to say, it underscores how he didn't say anything nice about Ethan specifically, did not talk about the quality of the relationship, and spoke about what Ethan isn't. Okay. All right. So disparaged Xana and Ethan here, their relationship. Okay. So this is something that me and my wife had discussed in the analysis. She was pretty confused about this. She wasn't sure where I was going with this. So the detective says, okay, let me ask you, gosh, I hate how that auto scrolls. Let me ask you this. Did Ethan ever say something akin to, I think I'm going to go and stay with Xana tonight because more of a security issue. And he actually didn't even let the detective finish. It was like he heard security issue and he jumped right on it. So this is a really complex thing that I don't think I made clear. All right. So the main point here of the question, Ethan ever say something? Okay. Did Ethan ever say something? All right. This is the heart of the question here, and it's related to security issues and why he may have stayed with Xana for security issues. Did he ever say anything? All right. And the subject says, not necessarily. Okay. Not necessarily. And not necessarily is not a yes. It's not a no. Okay. It's somewhere in between. All right. So it's a very confusing way to answer this. All right. And it seems like based on his answer, he was asking, it seemed like he focused on just whether there was a security issue. Okay. It seems like he is not answering this question. Did Ethan ever say something? So, and that's why I said he didn't even answer the question, which makes it even more sensitive. It's such a bigger sensitivity indication. Anytime a investigator is asking a subject a question and the subject doesn't even answer it, it is underscored, bolded, all caps. Like this is very, very sensitive to the subject in a negative way. In a negative way, it's not a good way. All right. They don't want to answer it for a reason. Okay. And you look at the question, why would he not want to answer a question like this? If this is an innocent, good friend of Ethan's and Xana's, it's an extremely bad sign, first of all. Okay. Second of all, he doesn't give a yes, he doesn't give a no. He says not necessarily. So it's like, there's a caveat. And he explains why it's not necessarily a security issue. And then goes on to just say, Ethan, he talks about the distance here. Detective says, okay. So he stayed with Xana a lot of nights just because it's kind of a far walk. He didn't want to walk that far type of deal. So he took this question, diverted it, gave a not a yes, not a no answer, and diverted it. Just like, and when I say divert, like a diversion, okay, or like if water's traveling down a way, has a certain course, and then you divert the water, right? You change its course. He diverted this to disparage why Ethan stayed at Xana a lot of nights, and it was just because he didn't want to walk that far. Not because he loved being with Xana, not because they were so close, not because he'd rather spend more time with her, because he was absolutely in love with her, but merely because it was a convenience, which speaks to, which clearly is easily taken as a shot at him, as a shot at their relationship, as a shot at Ethan's character. This signals he just used the situation. He used Xana. Okay. It wasn't that he loved her. It was he just didn't want to walk that far. He's lazy, as well. So it's a horrible sign. All right. And then we have this. So I talked about, let me just go back up here. Peter referred to I'm sorry. Peter began to mention Xana first, stopped, and then said Ethan and Xana. Okay. So tell me about who's in your class. Remember. All right. Right here. This one. I didn't know Kaylee. So the detective was asking about Kaylee. I had met her, but I didn't know her very well. the detective also asked about Kaylee and Maddie, excuse me. And he says, Maddie, kind of the same deal. I was a little bit closer with Maddie, but not near the amount of closeness I was to Ethan and Xana. Okay. So this points to priority. Who was on his mind was Xana. All right. And then he stopped himself. It appears to me he did not want to expose that. All right. He did not want to expose that. So to me, it connects with everything else here. It connects really well. All right. It makes sense. All right. So that's number one. All right. Number two, Peter blatantly lied to the detective and trooper multiple times. Subpoint. So here's the two times. Subpoint A, what Ethan and Xana said before they left Sigma Chi. So let's just go over that. Early in the interview, okay, the detective says, so tell me about, my understanding is you were one of the last ones to see them. Tell me about that. And he says, yeah, I was with them at Sigma Chi and went down there to grab a couple things. And then we went back into the lodge, and Zan and Ethan were in the lodge with my girlfriend and I, and that's the last time I saw them. And here's the key point. They said they were going to come with us. Okay. He continues on and says, but nobody remembers them coming with us. He says some other stuff that's just very wild, but they said they were going to come with us. This is right to begin the interview, right off the bat. Okay. In the first, I want to say minute. And then later in the interview, okay, did they say where they were going to? So this was back. Hey, all right. So tell me again about your last time you saw him in Sigma Chi. And he says it again, kind of relates what he had said earlier in a little bit, but a little bit different. But I'm just saying that I'm pointing out here. Okay, did they say where they were going? They didn't. And the detective says, okay. And the subject says, no. All right. They said they were going to come with us. So he blatantly lies about this. And what's fascinating about this, and this is why I just want to say something about statement analysis, is I know it's a lot, but by the time they got here in this interview, in this section, there was so much. And you began to really understand psychologically what was going on with Peter, that when the detective went back here, it's no wonder he lied here. He had so many indications of internal stress and saying things and talking about things that he did not want to talk about. It is wild to go over that. And, it's easy just to kind of do some bullet points of like, hey, these are the things that I got from the interview. If you haven't actually watched it, it's like kind of like watching a movie and you just watch the last like 10 minutes of it. And it's like, oh, wow, this is how it ended. But you miss the whole like build up, the whole plot, the whole character development, really understanding who the characters were, really understanding the psychology of Peter as we went through the statement. By the time it got here, it was fascinating. So it really, really hit real hard there. And then, so the second thing that Peter blatantly lied about is the camera and or photos. Okay. So early on, and I should have specified that, but this was early on. The detective asked about photos of the Sigma Chi. And he says, I looked, okay, past tense, looked on my camera roll and my snapshot memories. And I don't have anything past anything from after the formal party where Ethan and I were in our nice clothes. Okay. So I looked on my camera and I don't have anything. That's a change in tense. I looked. Okay, in the past, I looked, and now I don't have anything. All right. So I noted this, and this is true. As I was going through this, I noted this, and I wondered, is this change in tense here because he did have in the past stuff on his camera and his snapshot memories, and now he doesn't have current tense. And then later in it, in the statement, he says, after everything, after pretty much the whole interview, he says, I can look again and send you what I have from that night. And in the analysis, I speculated that he psychologically may have said this. He may the reason he didn't want to share this or said this part early in the interview is because he was concerned as to whether he was a suspect. And by the end of the interview, to me, it seems like to me his deception was undetected by the detective and trooper, and he psychologically perceived, I'm not a suspect. And so, his guard went down, if you will. And then all of a sudden, now he has pictures from that night that he can send. I can look again. So, because you get, for me, I ask myself, why the change? I can't see a change. I cannot give any other answers as to why that change occurred, other than it was at the end of the interview, and it seems like psychologically he realized he wasn't a potential suspect. His lies worked. His deception worked, and so sure he'll be helpful then. Really, really bad sign. All right, 3, Peter potentially deleted evidence. Okay, this goes right along with his lies. All right, I would not be surprised if he deleted evidence. Okay, Peter may have leaked that Xana's backpack was broken and or lost. All right, so this is really fascinating. Trooper, did they have a backpack or did Xana have a purse that they were putting these items into? Backpack or purse? I think that Xana had a bag, but I am not 100% positive. Okay. But do you know what generally would look like if it was a common bag she carry? I don't. I'm sorry. Okay. In college, we kind of go through backpacks really quickly. Sure, you tend to lose them or they break. I don't know what type of bag or anything about what it looked like. So he talks about losing or breaking. Okay. And he uses the word bag. And it just makes me wonder. Okay. It makes me wonder. I don't know the case facts about this. I truly do not. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe her backpack was there, was found in the house. And, but then I also do wonder, well, if it was found in the house, I mean, I don't know which one's worse, whether it was found in the house or not found at all. Because if this is let's say the murderer or a murderer of the Idaho 4, he would be really careful to only mention items of Xana's and Ethan's that were found at the location, right? He would not want to mention items that they had that were not found. It seems like to me. Okay. So, yeah, I guess I contradicted myself a little bit there. I guess it would be worse if the backpack that wasn't there, right? Or Xana's bag was not found. So, anyway, let's move on. Peter wouldn't say what items Ethan and Xana grabbed in his apartment. Okay. He said they had a couple of beers. Ethan may have grabbed his formal coat. So let's look at that. Okay. Do you recall the things they were packing up? Yeah. They had a couple of beers. Well, that's not a direct answer. This could very well mean they drank a couple of beers, or they had a couple of beers at one point, not they packed a couple of beers. They grabbed a couple of beers. Had is past tense. Had when? Okay. If the question was what did they have, they had a couple of beers. Okay. So this is this could be deception here. And then number two, Ethan may have grabbed his formal coat. That is not, he's not non-committal. If he won't say it, I'm not going to say it for him, and neither should you. So the question, one could argue, was actually not answered. Okay. All of Ethan's and Xana's belongings were removed from Peter's apartment the night of the murders. All right. Oh, I didn't bring this down, but if we look here, I'm going to zoom out. If we look at the statement, where is it? Right here. Okay. I'm going to circle you back to the 13th. When do you think was the last time you saw Ethan and Xana? They went to my apartment after the lodge party ended to pack up all their things. All their things. Okay. I'm going to go back down. Sorry, I'm jumping around here. Zoom in a little bit. All of Ethan's and Xana's belongings were moved from Peter's apartment the night of their murders. Okay. That is not a good sign. Peter appears to have a scripted account of the last time he saw Ethan and Xana. At the very beginning. Okay, yeah, I was with him. We were at the Sigma Chi party, okay? It ended at 1. It ending at 1 didn't answer the question. And is that an official, like I said in the analysis, was that an official time it ended? It's not, it's unnecessary information. He even talked about what they did after 1 o'clock. So there's really no point in that. All right. And when he first mentioned this early on, okay, he doesn't give a time as to when was the last time he actually saw them. Okay. This was before the end, if you will. All right. Anyway, he says it ended at 1 and we went back to my blank. Okay. And blank went down there. Oh, that's hard to see. Let me fix that. And well, not blank, but there's a drop pronoun here. We don't know who, and went down there to grab a couple things, which by the way, that was a change of language. He says grabbed all their things later. Here is to grab a couple things. And then we went back into the lodge, and Xan and Ethan were in the lodge with my girlfriend and I, and that's the last time I saw them. All right. So that's the very beginning. At the end, and this was just unbelievable to me. that this was said in this interview like this. Okay, I'm gonna have you circle back real quick to the 13th in the morning. When do you think was the last time you saw Ethan and Xana? Detective said it wrong. Subject: Ethan and Xana. In the lodge. I'm almost positive. He's not positive. If he can't say it, I won't say it for him. And he says, why am I almost positive? He explains why he's almost positive, because they went to my apartment after the lodge party ended to pack up all their things, and the lodge is the last place I saw them, around 1:20, 1:25. I kid you not. This is a direct quote. He stopped himself, gave out a big old sigh, and just finished with, the lodge is the last place I saw them, around 1:20, 1:25. Pretty exact there. That sounds persuasive. That sounds very persuasive to me. This sounds like a script. And he started talking. According to his account, they went to my apartment after the lodge party ended to pack up all their things, and then he just goes back to the script. The lodge is the last place I saw them, around 1:20, 1:25. What was he going to say? Yeah. I'm so curious. He knows more. There's more here. And what's creepy is, according to his account, really, according to the what he was retelling in the past, instead of just making this kind of scripted declarative statement here, the last place was his apartment. All right. Peter is close with Bethany and Dylan. Now, this is if the redactions are, that my assumptions about the redactions are true. Okay. It just logically makes a lot of sense to me that the detective asks about Ethan and Xana, then moves on to Kaylee and Maddie, and then only asks about two others, it seems. It only makes sense that it's Bethany or Dylan here, Bethany or Dylan here. Okay. So subject, yeah, I don't know why I have that in there. I'm just going to delete that. Do you know Kaylee and Maddie? I didn't know Kaylee. I had met her, but I didn't know her very well. Maddie, kind of the same deal. I was a little bit closer with Maddie, but not near the amount of closeness I was to Ethan and Xana. We talked about that. And then, okay, how about, and I believe this is either Bethany or Dylan. Look at this answer. No, I didn't. I mean, obviously we were acquaintances, but we weren't close though. A lot of sensitivity and internal stress when it came to this name, and some persuasion. And then detective, okay, and this person, which I believe is Dylan or Bethany, he stumbles on I, which is a very intense, a very solid indication of internal stress. Was a little bit closer with, and we don't know who he says. It seems Occam's razor would say a repeat of the name, but not to the extent I was with Ethan and Xana, if that makes any sense. So here, he contrasts it with Ethan and Xana. And then detective says, okay, and went on to start thinking about another question. And the subject continued. Like, I had known her for a little bit longer. Okay. Then Maddie and Kaylee. Now, what's really fascinating about this is the past tense. If these people are alive, and this is Bethany and Dylan, obviously, then they were alive, still are. He's talking about them in past tense. No, I didn't. I mean, obviously, we were acquaintances, but we weren't close. I was a little bit closer with blank. I had known her for a little bit longer. I think Peter is close with Bethany, and I almost said Bethany. Peter is close with Bethany and Dylan. If he can't say it, I won't say it for him. I had known her for a little bit longer. And this is why in my analysis, it seems like to me, he's thinking about November 13th. At November 13th, I had known her. I was a little bit closer. Okay. Well, in either way, or even before November 13th. But he's thinking about the past. He is not talking about the present. The question is, do you know these people? All right. Number 9, Peter is a primary suspect for the Idaho 4 murders. And I think that's a pretty good summary as to why I feel that way. Okay. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. And I hope this more shortened video, although this is not as short as I wanted it to be. So apparently I'm just very long-winded. But I hope this helps. I hope this nice little summary kind of just puts things in a little bit more clear picture for you. So look out for my next one. My wife really wants me to do the second one for Peter. So, and I know a lot of people have asked about that. That's probably what I'm going to do. I think she'd be mad at me if I don't, so I better just do that. I'm really eager to go into Lakeland though. So, it should go Peter 2, the second interview, and Lakeland. I've already started doing some of my analysis for Lakeland, so look out for that. But anyway, with that being said, I hope you all are doing great. God bless. See you later.